That is the program, the voice of the people, the Just Law program.
Yes,
The Jefferson and Sankey's.
Yes, and today Saturday the 20th of January, and there's so many issues.
Rather a lot of issues.
Yes, you have first the this question of the with the Venezuelans. You know, Venezuelans having some serious economic problems. There's economic devastation, turmoil, chaos in that country, and especially with some severe food shortages and the world's steepest inflation. And Venezuelans are migrating to neighboring countries. They're going to Colombia, Brazil, mostly, and then to a lesser extent Trinidad, Curacao.
I heard that the Venezuelan
we
chap.
need to help them.
I heard the Venezuelan chap of two Mahana.
Well, we come into
Get
that.
the man head.
Well, the Tushos are asking for investigation because the guy is partly an Amerindian guy, a young Amerindian. You have gangs roaming in that place. We need, first of all, to have a humanitarian visa for refugees from Venezuela and other countries.
Okay.
Because Colombia did this. We need to not to be so severe on people coming in. A few women came, and they locked them up. They fined them and deported them. You know, it's ridiculous.
I'm Donald Trump sent a lot of people. Why not talk about that?
We have to be more humane.
Oh.
We're not Donald Trump. We're different from Donald Trump. We have to show we're above Donald Trump.
Okay.
Then you have the Mayor City Council gave approval for modified parking agreement with Smart City Solutions, where it was suggested 150 per hour. This is no adjustment was made to the profit sharing agreement. We're 80-20. Now the guy gave us his excuse that you can't control expenses, but we can. We could itemize expenses and say this is what we allow and have a 50-50 agreement with the city council. Right? So, and then people are not going to allow it. We don't want it, that agreement. That agreement is not even legal. You know, it's being tested in the courts right now, and we're afraid that they're trying to push it because somebody has an interest in this agreement with Smart City Solutions. And furthermore, people would not like them to put the meters in residential areas. You know, it's a ridiculous.
What else is the solution? The oil.
The oil. Now we see the fishermen and farmers are complaining. They want insurance because if there's an oil spill, there must be some. So they must get some help. They need to have some clause protecting.
So what kind of clause can we get? Oil spill?
In the agreement, in the case of an oil spill, they will compensate the farmers and the fishermen.
Yes.
Now the MBS launched another challenge, Arjun. Morris Arjun.
How many years are Arjun case now?
You look at this dragging on for donkey years. It's about 7, 8, at least 8 years.
You know,
but they don't want to pay the 59 million. It was reduced from about 70 to 59. They don't want to pay that. Yeah, but it's a serious situation. But the House also has passed legislation to protect whistleblowers. But again,
that's right.
Some whistleblowers going to give false information. What is going to be done when they give false information
on
people? You know, so something needs to be done.
He can be a whistleblower.
Yeah. And then we see also finally that they're going to have the National Cadet Corps relaunch. National Cadet Corps.
Rasta?
Yeah.
What is summary of you?
Well, as I keep saying, the more things change, the more they remain the same. And right now, the word is we need justice for Marlon Fredericks. Marlon Fredericks. Look, it's been a week now since he was brutalized on Robb Street, and tomorrow will make a week since he was murdered by Gregory Bascom, shot in the back. Came back home. The system failed people like Marlon. Marlon used to go in Tiger Bay and sit down there and write his application forms to get a job. They could testify. This guy was bright. He was harassed, he was extorted on the road by city constables, he was harassed, he was chased down, he was brutalized, and he was shot and killed. Man, we need some justice for Marlon Fredericks. No, apart from that.
How you know the man shot and killed?
In the back, Gregory Bascom is now charged for that, and he's been charged for manslaughter. No, he ought to be charged for murder. No.
But who assaulted the boy or something?
What's that?
Who assaulted the boy?
Well, this city constable, it's alleged that the guy was escaping from custody and he was chased down and shot in the blow back. Anyway, the point is we need an inquest, we need something more. This is too much cover-up happening, And the questions over City Hall, what's going on there, please. Anyway, Sherlock Holmes is in town, and Barrett Jagdio, Bamsey Biting.
What?
Dr. Sam Sittle in town, the forensic expert, is in town.
Got totally right,
Right.
you know. Good, yeah. Yeah.
The security sector reform program is online, and Mr. Barrett, Dr. Barrett Jagdio, whatever he is a revisionist. More so, he's not a stickler to the truth. In his time, there were more murders happened in his time than any other time in Guyana's history.
Yeah.
More young people were killed extrajudicially, and now he's asking our president to account for murders. Why doesn't he account for Sash Saw's murder? Why doesn't he account for Ronald Waddle's murder, for Crummy Wing's murder, for so many different murders that happened under his watch?
Yes.
And I'm worried about this guy, like he's suffering from amnesia or something. No.
The figures show.
Huh?
The figures show that during the PP regime, the increase of police deaths was 1,000%.
What?
I presented the figures once to the public. 1,000% increase.
What? During his tenure.
Yep.
Okay.
He plus
One policeman was killed in every 10 years, average from 1960 something.
plus he encouraged.
When it took over, it changed to 2 every year, which is a
He
1,000%
encouraged
increase.
the operation of Roger Kent. Roger Kent practically ran the government while he was supposed to be president. All those things. So I'm wondering why he's talking up so much, and I think he's worried that Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Sam Sittington, will finally get some cases going. Now, the next thing, before I
Considering
finish,
you are the former prime minister,
Correct.
yeah, and you who was Mr. Well, what about your portfolio?
Health, housing, labor,
Minister
co-ops,
Works at one time.
all sorts of
Yeah,
things, yes.
and you lot of ministry, the minister, prime minister.
he's one of the most qualified.
Give some real
politicians
view for what
around.
happening with the oil.
Well, you know, he talked about the constable.
Yes,
My position has always been,
yes.
let us hear both sides of the
Okay.
story.
So I more one say.
I wouldn't decide that a man should be tried. Murder has a component of intent.
That's right, that's true.
And secondly, when we spoke last week about the judicial system, I received several calls from persons, including a high judicial officer who served as judge in Botswana and Swaziland. And the situation is really terrible.
Yeah.
I had one case came to my attention of a matter filed 2 years before it was heard. And Article 144 or 35 of the Constitution is very clear
Okay.
that every citizen is entitled to a fair trial, and secondly, that trial should be done within a reasonable time. 4 or 5 years could not be a reasonable time. I received a call from a Guyanese from the quarantine who's now in Baltimore, US, about a case that her father had,
Okay.
has been going for 6 years,
Yes.
and she's getting no redress. And I believe that with the nomenclature of your station, Justice for All, and the work you've been doing publicly, that you perhaps can call a public meeting or session or conference and ask people to make a démarche with the Chancellor, because it's a violation of the Constitution
Okay.
and the denial of people's rights. New Building Society was one we talked about last week.
Yes.
So I am challenging you, Sian, with your ability to get things done,
Yes.
to host such a meeting. And you see, because the country is clearly 3 sectors: judiciary, the executive, and the parliament. And I think
Yeah.
the president,
Yeah.
with his penchant for correctness, would be reluctant to interfere with the judiciary,
Yes.
because that's a compartment by
Yes.
itself. But I believe if people have been adversely affected, and there are thousands of there,
Yeah.
on this station,
Yeah.
we can make, as I said, a démarche with the Chancellor and have this matter explained. There must be some reason. Is it the attorneys? Is it the system? Is it the lack of modern equipment? The government gave them modern equipment the other day. Something has to be radically wrong. You have your own case, and it is not right. People have died before they can get any form of justice.
Mr. Green, what do you think about the rice sugar workers now?
But I think they're getting a fair deal in all the
It's a
circumstances.
fair, what do you mean by that? Yeah,
As I understand, I heard
yeah, yeah.
Kumal
Yeah,
Chan
yes.
I think yesterday or last night, suggested he was satisfied with the settlement,
Yes.
and the first tranche should be paid before the end of this month, and the second during the course of the year.
Yes.
There are other things that the government and the unions have worked out,
Okay.
and I believe it is in the interest of the country and the workers
Okay.
that we should allow the process to take place and healing to take place.
Yeah.
For too long, we've used the sugar industry as a political football.
Okay.
The PP has used it. They've paid people's salaries in excess of what public servants get,
Yeah.
all because they want to hold on to that compartment. I think the time has come when we should see the industry for what it is worth. You can't have a business that is running and you have to pay billions every year to keep it going. That's not a business.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
Yeah.
And we had to take cognizance of the world market, the oil crisis in 1974. Sugar prices dropped. People are now producing beet. And it is a question that we have not been able to maintain the level of efficiency
Okay.
that will make sugar
Okay.
production
Okay.
feasible.
Tell us a little about the oil. Mr. Stratman and what have you.
Well, I expect Mr. Trotman to explain his position on oil. I'm not an expert.
Yes.
But I said last week, and I repeat it, that I take a fundamental position, a philosophical position, and I told Sir Christopher Ram the other night, since I was a boy, I've heard of oil exploration.
Yes.
When I got into government,
Yes.
several groups came in the Rupert in the Northwest. We've had two sets of problems. One, I suspect, may have been political. You remember manganese, they closed down manganese, claiming they were mining in an inverted cone.
Yeah.
We've had the problem with Venezuela, who have for years threatened the companies that, look, don't drill for oil in
That's right.
that area.
Yes.
The fact that Exxon has come on board and have moved the things to a point where you're going to get oil is a good sign. Of course, I expect the ministers and the government, the coalition, with some amount of prudence and advice from people who know to ensure that we get the best deal in the circumstances. But what I'm saying, don't expect the maximum in circumstances where for years nobody has touched us with oil. Venezuela has oil, Trinidad has oil. We knew we had oil before you were born.
Yes, I know that.
And now that somebody is going to
Yes.
make this thing into reality,
Okay.
don't let expect perfection. We live in an imperfect human world.
What
That's
is
my
posi-
philosophical
what is
position.
Position when you were born in time? What the position when the road, when the Venezuela road was building the road? You can remember that? You can recall that?
You
When they was
talk-
building the road.
The Dale County Road?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Jag and the PP spent millions of dollars,
That's millions.
and not 1 yard of road was
Yeah,
built, the
yes.
Dale County Road. So all those things we need to let our young people know. So those in the Jagdeo camp who
You
shout,
man can remind these people them. You got to remind the people now.
well, that's why I'm thankful for your program.
Okay. Yeah.
And it is, they have no moral grounds upon which to criticize the government. None whatsoever. They've brought this country to ruin. Our foreign service was in shambles. And the foreign service is the face of a government. And thank God we've got good people now like Mr. Evelyn and others who have retooled the foreign service
Yeah.
and made it into something with
Yeah.
the Minister Greenwich,
Yeah.
that we can again be proud of.
Okay.
I've had my own experience traveling recently
Yes, yes.
of the efficiency and courtesy of staff members of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That is what separates a country from being modern
Yes.
and not being barbaric
Yes. Yes.
to being sophisticated.
Yeah. Then we have this case here of the beheading of
Yes.
the Guyanese.
Yeah.
The National Treasurer's Council appealed for government
Yeah,
investigation, but
yeah.
we've had barbaric deeds in
Yes.
outlying areas of Venezuela where Guyanese have been killed. This is not the first
Yeah.
time.
Ramasin had his head taken off.
Yes.
Well, they're a law unto themselves.
Yeah, they have certain marauding gangs, gangs that do as they like this, because Venezuela is very chaotic right now. The government doesn't seem to have control of the country as a whole.
They take off a hand, their head. They cut off the hand, 2 hands.
Well, we've got to ensure that culture does not.
So what we army really doing? What the army is doing in Guyana?
The army?
Yes, the army.
Well, the
They
incident
not
took.
protect the people.
No, we can't go over to Venezuela
Okay.
to protect the Guyanese. We have to use A, the diplomatic route,
Yeah.
or B, find a modus vivendi to have some border discipline. But from what I've seen and heard, those steps are just lawless.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I can't speak for the Venezuelan government, but the Venezuelan government seems to have little control over the group.
They seem to have little control.
They're
in
out.
certain areas, yes. And people,
It's
this is
not
the first
new,
time.
it happened in the Wild West.
This is not the first time.
We
because
must know our history.
The Guyanese are being killed
Okay.
in those areas, yes.
Ross, tell them get some of your people.
Well,
You want to talk all the time. Yeah.
I think we got to be careful, of course, because it could be a kind of baiting going on with the Venezuelans trying to get us, involved in some tit-for-tat action. So a lot of diplomacy
Okay.
would have to be done.
It has to be diplomacy.
No,
but these
the
are-
other thing is our workers are still being exploited by foreign companies. Their rights are not being, looked after. A lot of them are crying out foul for low wages, non-payment of overtime, and non-adherence to contracts or memorandums of memorandum of understanding crafted. The point is, Bosai, Rusal, Guyana Goldfields, you call them whatever it is. We've got to run tight rein on these foreign companies that work our people literally to death and give them starvation wages, because let's face it, we're on the cusp of becoming a first world kind of economy. And we got to be careful that while the goodies are coming in, our people are still starving. And for less than a
Who the
minute.
people not starve? Where is it not people can't starve?
No.
You could look at what food in the
Yeah,
market.
no.
Brother,
You have
sugar.
money to pay for that, man.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Right now, Guyanese are keeping quiet. They just tie up the belly a little tighter, draw a notch, because they understand to some degree what the changes are. Seriously, because in some other environment there would have been civil war, strife in the street, unrest. But Guyanese have a little common sense and know that the government working. But what is needed right now is some more cooperation rather than this kind of head-to-head politics where, because I'm in opposition and you're proposition, we must fight. We need to come together now at a crucial time for Guyana's development. And that's what I'm saying to Brother Jagdio. He has a chance to become a statesman and establish his legacy. If he could only sit down as a level-headed brother with our president and craft a national way forward for this country. That's all I'm saying. Let's unite. We got to stop this opposition and proposition, because as opposition, they must fight you down. No. Minority, majority, but together we're government, and let's work for our people. That's what's my position right now. We need to unite a little bit more across the table.
Sankey, what do you want education in Guyana?
Well,
Go in case now.
well, at least what is happening, the president has been providing buses for school children to go to school. But besides that, we need to deal with this question of dropouts. We need to make sure that the curriculum is up to standard as well, that we have a rounded education. Not, what is happening now is that it's just like books, and they're neglecting the other side, the sports and recreational side too.
And IT.
and also the morals, the values,
And we got to prepare for the future.
Let me say two sets of things. One, in terms of my brother Saul's concern, we have to ensure that the democratic structure is secure in a society. Those issues must be taken up by the unions. Don't expect government to get
the
it.
workers' situation.
Yes, that's what unions are there for. You have a TUC, you have separate unions. The unions must be active, and they can be assured of government. This is not a hostile government. This is an anti-working class government.
Operator, please come.
I know Lincoln Lewis has been quite activist and voices his
On the
position.
question raised by Mr. Sankey's, you've got to start somewhere. The education system has been
Something wrong with the
shattered
phone.
over the past few years. We've lost a generation plus of people, of standards. Young people don't know the difference between right and wrong.
Or not enough.
And therefore, when the president started with buses and bicycles, it's an effort to ease a current pressure while we deal with a long-term problem of restructuring the education system. Or get teachers properly trained, better paid.
Answer off.
We've got to stop this folly of private schools in a building. There are no facilities for recreation, nothing at all. Those of us who went to Queen's College know. When I went to Brickdam, you had the eastern ground, the western ground, the northern ground. We played cadets. You had scouts.
I was a cadet.
Had chess society.
Music society.
We played football,
Debating
hockey.
society.
The small swimming pool at GFC
Plus you said
was
just
used.
judo.
When Burnham established President's College, it was in advance of that.
Yeah.
I have a daughter who's one of the best equestrians, does riding, horse riding.
Okay.
Where is she?
She's in Texas now. Came back from the last government and don't give her a proper job.
Hold on. Your daughter came back here, couldn't get a proper job
On the PP,
under the PPP.
yeah.
It is discriminatory. For anybody.
Is that a fact?
They sent her to work with somebody who's less qualified than she is.
Oh, that went on.
Connie,
But I don't talk about it.
Hello?
They were very discriminatory
Hello?
in that period of time when they came in power.
She had the wrong name.
Dead.
So what she does something up there now that is suitable for her qualifications.
She's a scientist in the woodlands.
Yeah. So Brother Green, the state is going very green.
Okay.
Um,
Mr. Green, what do you think about the agriculture sector?
Yes.
Agriculture.
That is something we need to,
Yes.
as the Benjamins, we have to titivate it. Because we have to realize and fulfill Burnham's dream
Yes, okay.
to feed this nation and to feed the Caribbean. And so we can do it. But again, you've got to overcome the culture which developed over the past 20, 30 years of people importing everything. I was amazed the other day. I went to buy fruits. A chap 20 papaw was imported. You couldn't believe that?
What?
Yes.
What is it?
Papaws imported.
Papa?
Yes, sir.
From
Go
where?
by go by border markets.
I used to have a tree in my yard.
Okay. Connie, you're there. Hello?
So we imported papa and Trinidad rejecting our coconut water.
Hello? 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 Yes.
What's going on, brother?
How do you go? What coming on?
What's coming on?
Yes.
I just start talking.
I see our boys doing very well at cricket. We must
Yes,
congratulate
yes,
them.
yes.
Who's that? Chandapal's son?
Yes, we've got 540, and the Trinidad has to make 4 something. I don't think they can do it.
Again,
And tonight we have Trinidad boxes and
Bad blood.
Venezuelan boxes.
Bad blood to be spilled.
That-
You going?
That should be, of course. I'm an
Oh,
old
you're a
boxing fan.
Mhm.
Yeah, Guyana is doing well.
I know about Cliff Anderson Sports Hall, how it was named.
Yeah, but the West Indies is not doing so well.
Let me hold the topic now about the agriculture. The agriculture is like in chaos right now.
It's not in chaos. It is not as productive as it should be.
Okay.
We have to ensure we produce more vegetables and that there are markets. A lot of food is being produced in the Rupununi, for example.
Can you get out?
The problem has always been farm to market facilities. This has been worked out in the regions, and perhaps the coalition will not want to do it. We got to take the bull by the horns, just ban some things.
We used
Or
to get
import restriction.
We used to get cashews.
Well, I am not always wedded to diplomatic language.
You're following Trump.
But cashews used to be grown in Rupununi as well. But I
You
don't-
can still get them there.
Or import substitution.
Whatever word you want to use, we have got to persuade our Guyanese people, when they go to supermarket, look at labels and buy fresh stuff. We still have corn in
Yes.
tins.
Yes.
The problem is that all of us travel, all of us have relatives either in the United States or Canada or United Kingdom. And we want to replicate the lifestyle from New York, Detroit, Miami, etc., etc. That's a difficult one to fight against.
Yeah.
Because if you do it, people claim that you're being negative, you're being retarding growth,
Okay.
and you're not being progressive.
Yeah.
But we've got to take the bull by the horns.
An item like pomegranate,
Okay.
you could hardly find it in the market, and that is so.
Look, I've started to use this by difficulty, jamu wine, because it's excellent
Yeah.
for the heart. I can't get jamuns.
Oh, Lord.
Call your name. Hello?
We're sorry, this number is temporarily disconnected.
They interrupt the lines.
She has to speak up.
No, the lines interrupted. Somewhere is equivalent lines or something like that. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
checked with East Coast, West Coast to Beast for jamuns.
Yeah.
It's
No,
amazing.
no farmers can do it.
You were
I
talking-
spoke with DDL. They have difficulty getting.
You were talking about the banning things, like what you got to ban. Born is a ban things. Born was selling ban.
Banom.
It has to be carefully worked
Yeah.
out.
Yes.
Once we have, look, the other day we discovered that we have an abundance of timber, lumber.
Okay.
It means we've got to call the contractors and say, look, we've got lumber, it's first class, we're going to dry it. Stop building in concrete. Stop importing cement. In a modern democracy, you have to persuade people. It's not like long ago and you say, do this and do that. And this is what the coalition must do. Persuade the merchants, for example. They can make as much money selling Saijan as importing
How are you
something.
going to persuade the merchants?
You can, I don't think.
Tax breaks, incentives, concessions, no?
Well, you've got to deal with a mentality that is profit-oriented
Yeah.
and not oriented to development. But I think most of them,
Those
We'll adjust.
incentives have to be there for the first couple of years so they can get a foothold.
it depends on
and
the
then-
language.
and then,
Guyana is not a
It's
poor
easy.
country,
It's
you know.
easy to import something in a can or a drum
Yes.
and sell it.
A lot of
There's
Hello?
no spoilage, nothing at all.
A
It's
lot of
easy.
money.
Hello?
A lot of money is stashed in Guyana. Guyana is
Hello?
not a poor land. The challenge is to make private people bring out the money and invest in Guyana and invest in Guyanese manufacturing initiatives.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Sharman.
Yes.
You on the panel.
Good afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, I mentioned about the kitty market when Mr. Green was there.
Yes.
And I said over 240 million was spent.
Yes.
And Mr. Green was asking me where I get my figures from.
Okay.
Well, it's in the press, Mr. Green. The mayor said that 240 million was already spent. Now the Minister of Communities gave them 25 more million. He awarded the contract to a contractor to do certain parts. But then now you have the town clerk saying that 50 million out of the 200 million the government gave them this year will be spent on the market. What I'm saying, go and check what the 25 million the contractor would do, and then the town clerk now wants 50 more million to squander, right? This is the thing the Minister of Communities have to look into.
Okay.
You can't just give the city council money, they're not spending it wisely.
Okay.
Check and see the 25 million,
Okay.
what will be done at the market.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Unless
no,
you-
just a farmer me, how can
Unless you
respond?
have the empirical evidence,
Yeah.
I wouldn't go
Yeah,
so
yeah,
far
Yeah.
as to say the town clerk is squandering money. First, the town clerk is an official. He has to work with instructions from the council. And my position is let's talk to the municipality to find what the real story is. It's not fair to get on the radio
Okay.
and accuse
Agree
the
with
town
you.
clerk of squandering money.
Okay.
And we must not assume a senior public official to be that irresponsible.
Well, we saw
They've
the
got
case-
serious problems at
with
City
the,
Hall.
with the Bel Air story where land was reserved for recreational purposes. How could he give an housing developer that land and then put the matter before the court? He puts us he puts taxpayers in expense there by because the people challenge this, because that land in Bel Air was reserved for recreational purposes.
Yes.
He allowed a guy named Taljit, a housing developer, I don't know how reputable he is, to
Who is my gentleman intelligent? From here.
I don't know.
I don't know that he's got the land.
Yeah.
The matter is being discussed.
No, but it's before the court, and they put it in sovereign injunction to stop him.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that why go to investigate for it before you go and take such action, you know, so that you would
Calling on
look
you.
that
Hello?
poor person expense.
Hello?
Kindly can talk.
Hello?
You see, the trouble is, we went to a lot of trouble. A fine man came to this country, Professor Atbar Khan, in the 90s, did an extensive and exhaustive report on the redevelopment of Georgetown. We could not get the PVP to look at that report and to attempt to implement it. My advice to the council, now that you have a new government, is to look at that report and see what aspects are not relevant, because Professor Khan he did a first-class job. He consulted everybody. The trouble is, already some of those lands have been sequestered to other people between 1992 and 2014. So I don't know whether the plan can be executed as it was. You know, for example, he had a proposal to reconfigure the bus services. You put the buses in the north of the city, so to relieve the congestion around the Parliament buildings and that kind of thing.
Maybe they can put it on the information
Hello?
on the net so people can have it,
Hello?
public can view it. You know.
Hello,
Yes?
I welcome to the panel here.
Yeah.
Get up.
I must say that listening to Rustman, you know, he's a very fair man, and I compliment him. I could sit and listen to him more than any of the three of y'all.
Yeah.
What I want to say though is that I agree with the caller or the kitty market issue. You have $240 million spent there and it hasn't completed. Then you have the central government plugging millions of dollars more into it. Now, listening to Mr. Green saying just now that how millions of dollars have been plugged into the sugar industry, and you know it has to be closed down. Well, let's close down City Council too, because millions of dollars is spent on them. You know, listen to that. There's a general saying that lots of them, the files couldn't be audited because of the town clerk hiding the files.
Yeah.
Let Green know that he needs to be truthful when making presentation about Guyana's issues. Thank you.
Well, the truth is always a chameleon word, means different things to different people.
Yeah.
I am not defending anybody. I'm just saying you don't accuse a group unless you have the evidence.
Yeah. What is some of the evidence you got on that situation?
Well, you know, I have experience at City Hall.
Oh.
People say all sorts of things that are not valid, not truthful, not accurate. And the city has had a problem since in the 80s. It has never had enough, the 3 M's, money, manpower, and materials to manage a modern city. Every time we try to get money, there's a problem. We need to ramp up on our management and modern equipment. But those things can only go as part of a plan where you have the money in place. I was hoping that with the new government, there'll be greater dialogue between the Ministry of Communities and the City Council so they can advance the city forward.
How was the mayor in Georgetown? Do you think she's capable of handling the city?
Well, she was democratically elected.
Yeah.
We must assume she's capable unless somebody thinks differently.
Okay.
The present mayor has a lot of experience. She worked with me since
Okay.
1994, but she can only function within the confines of reality.
Okay.
And the other thing about City Hall, and this has to do with the constabulary in every department. City Hall is a result of the pressure for qualified persons at all levels. Take the constabulary. A young man who is bright opts first for the army, then the police force, the public service, and when he can't get anywhere else, he goes to the constabulary. That's a typical example of...
So the pay is not good then?
It's not the pay alone, it's the status, the training mechanism, And once you go there, you don't have the enthusiasm, the cultural position of being a top notch. And this has to be corrected,
This is
and it
not
takes
fully so,
time.
you know, because this guy who just got charged of manslaughter, Gregory Bascom, he was an old police. He came out of the police force and
Exactly.
he
For
did
what
not.
reasons were he coming?
I don't know, but he did not follow SOP, standard operating procedure.
A lot of the
or procedure.
constables
Uh-huh.
were either members of the fire service, the police force, the army, because I don't want to use the word an English politician used once. They are regarded as the dregs. It's a harsh term to use, but that's reality. A lot of those fellows worked in the police force before, have had problems. Some of them were dismissed or cashiered, and unless we can ramp up the constabulary at all levels.
What do you think about the acting commissioner of police?
What I think,
Yeah.
I don't know enough to think
Who's
about
that? Who's
it.
the acting commissioner? Ryan?
No,
Yeah,
Robin
yeah.
Ryan.
Paul Williams, the crime chief?
No, Romney, right?
Robin Ryan. No, Robin Ryan.
Well, Robin Wright went on a trips
Yes,
recently
yeah.
and they put Paul Williams to the
Yeah.
crime
Yeah,
act,
yeah.
and I don't think that was right. He superseded Marlon Chapman. Marlon Chapman is the commander of A Division, and I think he was the next in line to
No,
have
no,
been
the guy in
acting.
London, the guy who was in London, he superseded him.
Right.
What is his name again?
So I don't know what's happening here. Paul Williams just came out of the blue recently, became acting crime chief, and now he suddenly became acting commissioner. Something is wrong in that whole line
no,
of
the acting
progression.
commissioner put him there because of what is happening. You understand?
Man,
There's a lot of loyalty.
Let me
You
ask
have
Mr.
your own
Green. Let me ask
loyalties
Mr.
there.
Green. What they were
something is not right.
Look,
Yeah.
in a situation where we receive complaints on a daily basis about the police force, the outstations, the administration, I am reluctant to make an adverse comment on the administration, the ministries, putting people in place. They must know what's happening. The police force needs a complete overhaul. And the police force
exactly.
is part of our general society where things have deteriorated over the past 20, 30 years.
Brother Hami, the Police Service Commission is not in place, and it ought to be in place, like several other commissions. What's going on? It's already the 20th of January
But
2018.
you raise another matter which is valid.
Right. But these are things that are part of the democratic process that got to be in place. Otherwise, we got
You
may as well
see-
deal with a
You
theocracy.
see, the police had divided loyalty. Those who were loyal to Silal and those who were loyal to Ramnarai. So Ramnarai gonna put somebody in place who we could trust.
That's why we need a police service commission to deal with the matter
What-
professionally.
What
We
the
need
position
that.
with Sila now?
He's off until
Silal.
April.
Silal,
He his birthday is in April,
I saw
and I
it.
think by that time,
Zeno.
he'll probably be retired.
That man looked very happy and relaxed. I saw him going into Matais last week.
Yeah.
Looked slim and trim. And he looked so young. I said, Brother Silal. He said, yeah, Liawav, that's a man like you're looking good. He's laughed. The man look relaxed. A lot of professionals don't know how good it is to take a break sometimes because they are workaholics and they're so focused on their work and being professional, they never know what it is like to relax. I think Brother Silal, glad he's off right now. He realized that there's more to life than just serving
You
two
know,
masters.
interesting you should say that. My wife said that to me this morning.
Yeah.
There's more to life, and that don't let people call you at 5:30 in the morning, as they did for so many years.
Don't stress yourself out.
Same point she made this morning.
Yeah, because there comes a point, Brother Ham, and it comes to maturity. After you pass a certain age, you begin to relish life and time itself.
Yeah.
That's true. I agree with that. Call you in the head.
We're sorry. This number is temporarily disconnected.
I think there's something wrong with our cell phone, because
System seems faulty.
yeah, the system not working good. And we talk about it was many months ago. We talk as telephone, they're not functioning properly.
Is it instrument or GT&T?
Yeah, GNT. Yeah.
I'm trying to get him to come to buy myself.
That's why we don't like monopolies.
Call you in here. Hello. You see that? Hello.
Hello?
Good afternoon to
Good afternoon.
I'm on your panel.
Yes.
I just want to say we cannot have PNC facts and PPP facts. And I'm saying this to
Why you say that?
I'm saying this to Mr. Green.
Oh,
And this is what is going on.
Yeah.
People just be defending and defending. Facts ain't got defense. The truth is a judgment. Ain't got nothing to do with Mark Britton or anybody else. The facts is the facts. This is what I know in school. They'll ask you, what do you have to say when the teacher point to you? You better talk sense. Yeah, now what PNC say and what PPP say and what your mother say or your father say is what you saying, whether it's truth or not. Because they got people that know the truth. And I know the truth. Because the truth is universal, it's not my truth. The facts are there. Now, concerning the Exxon thing and all of that,
Okay.
and Guyana, it is not the government, it is the people. That is what it named.
Okay.
And even PNC is the People's National Congress.
Yeah.
Not Mr. Green National Congress, not Mr. Height National Congress, not even Mr. Bonham National Congress.
Okay.
They didn't name Bonham National Congress, they named the People's National Congress. And the only way I talk about Mr. Bonham, because you do things to the people. I am not stupid, and that's why I got problem with people.
Okay.
And I tell them bring anybody they want,
Okay.
me alone, and they
Okay.
can bring a whole panel of people to deal with me. And I'll destroy all of them. Because
Mr. Green, what's some of your comment?
But
The gentleman-
reason-
Well,
Yes.
I'll share with him
Yeah.
2 anecdotes about the truth. 2 and 2, is it 4 or 22?
Oh, that's creative accounting.
Secondly, someone comes to you and say, when have you stopped beating your wife? The question is an assumption which may never have existed. I'm always suspicious of people who claim they know the truth. I've said on this program before, life consists of your side, my side, and the real story. The trouble in the real world, you never get the real story. So at my stage, I listen to people like the caller, very enthusiastic, but what are the empirical evidence upon which he's basing his facts?
But you made a point about the People's National Congress. The other party is named People's Progressive Party. They know that the basis of their existence lies with the people. You know, the people. Everything is done for the people.
Yeah.
You know, both major parties have the name.
But that's another conundrum.
Uh-huh.
Even in the so-called West and East, people and political leaders, even the church, anchor their philosophy, their programs on the people. They claim to speak for the people, but do they really speak for the people?
And that's democracy.
And if so,
Right?
well,
This claim to speak on behalf of the people is democracy.
democracy, as I said, is a chameleon word, meaning many things to different people. It's like love. You know, a young man may use the word love, but it's not the same love Jesus had for us.
So, coming now between democracy and theocracy, don't you think Guyana's constitution more favors a theocratical approach to governance, which means that the executive presidency has so much of power that he's like God himself?
Not really, you know.
No?
What matters in a democracy, and Guyana is a small society, we don't have 1 million people. It is the quality, the sincerity, and the honesty of your leaders. You can't craft a constitution which is perfect. Any constitution will have its loopholes. What is important, like the church, is the example you set. And this is where our society needs to begin from the very beginning. So you wean children to have certain moral standards. I talked about a moral and a spiritual revival back in 1992.
Are you still on that platform?
Some people thought it was, of course, people thought it was a joke. So what we need, and that's why the churches, the mosques, and the temples are important to the development of our society. They've got to give society its body, its meaning.
But they're not doing that right now.
But
I don't think that's a fair statement.
But-
They're not doing enough.
you know, but in 1994, Bishop Edgell was with you.
Well, the bishop is a maverick. The bishop has had his own way.
Kwame was also with you.
Yes. But you know, Jesus, as I said, had 12
Odinga Lumumba
disciples.
was also with you.
Yes.
So what with these guys? Why they got it straight away? What's
Well,
it? You're too much of a disciplinarian?
I'm telling you, which I said in this program, Jesus had 12 disciples, you know. One betrayed him, one denied him, and one doubted him. So I'm not Jesus.
Call you. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Charm.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Yes.
Hey, Leon.
Hi,
See you, my brother.
what's up?
Hey, man. If we go in Green Guyana and we're going to start to use local, I believe that they should legalize the marijuana because it's locally grown in Guyana. And if we're going to legalize marijuana, we should legalize the black joints too because it's locally wrapped in Guyana. What do you think?
Okay. I can't make a decision on that. Please.
Leon will tell you that has been actively pursued.
Yes.
There was a forum at St. Stan's House called about 4 months ago. He was present, I was present. The matter is being discussed at the level of the CARICOM so that hopefully the CARICOM states will find a modus vivendi and have a single position. Jamaica's gone ahead. Guyana would like to be part of a consensus. So we deal with this matter.
I think St. Vincent and the Grenadines is also looking
You
at
see,
actively.
we've had this problem from the days of Europe. Certain substances, like life itself, some have a plus, some have a minus. Alcohol was in that category at one time. But people are using alcohol socially now. But we've seen the damage alcohol has done to families and individuals. People who are, in my own family, members who are quiet, sane, rational, they drink and they complete metamorphosis or complete change of their personality. That's why I never drank.
But that affects some people, not all people that way.
Most people.
Caller,
Most people.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Sharma.
Yes.
Mr. Green, conundrum is a European word. Righteous and fair is God's word.
Yes.
Righteous and fair. And any man who lives in and claim himself intelligent and don't know them two words, he really is a wicked man. Burnham was prosperous and just society, which is the 1976 the fire treaty of fire. Right there on the monument, you know, at the back.
Declaration of Sapphire.
Prosperous and just society. That's what I'm talking about, you know. And in the final analysis, me and you reasoning could look wrong. But in the final analysis, the results will tell you are right. Burnham will be judged by his results. Mr. Hyde judged by his results. And the results of Mr. Hyde is that he brings in capitalism and black people have no power in capitalism. They don't have a bank. Just I know all them and PNC failures. Tell them, Mr. Grange, you know, it's only here get a pass, you know, because they all them been there all the time. What have they done for black people? What they have established in black society? I don't belong to Guyana. I belong to the whole African nation in this world. So when Guyanese try to lock me down in nonsense, they don't even know what they're talking about. And I don't win America, I don't win Canada, I don't win around the Caribbean, I don't win all over. This nonsense was going on in Guyana. But people fixing the propaganda words in a certain way. I know the whole thing. I know the dictionary words. All the guy who's got a dictionary and you know the words. And it's nonsense people be talking and trying to tell you. Everybody knows Mama belongs to this, he's covering for that. You gotta be really fair and just without being biased.
Okay. Yes.
Even the judges biased. They
Good
got their this party that associate with these people and these people. We know the same thing in America. The CIA runs the drugs. People who are in the CIA says that. Mr. Granger bring up people from England who are the drug dealers of this world from since before he was born, since 300 years ago while we were in slavery. It is documented. George's father was a drug dealer. They got white people telling you grandfather was a drug dealer. They have calling names. Everybody know. Look, Mr. Green, y'all could stay in y'all world. You all gone past Guyana in the 60s. It gone past a long time. And the whole world know America now, you know. That's why when Trump come to power, I said, Trump is the real American. Clinton, them, the Democrats, are the make-believe Americans. They want to make you believe that America is a good place. America is never a good place. Trump is the way America really was all the time and continue to be till to this day. CIA people testifying to what it is do all over the world today in killing and murdering people in order to make capitalism look like it's great. That is how it stands. The only people who could talk is China. If China is following what we talking about, they're following these people, they will never be where they are. You got to stand strong and compete with people. That's what Mr. Borum did, that's what I know, and I will not do anything else as a black man, particularly where I keep down 400 years. I know how America built.
Thank you.
America was the Venezuela to overthrow us.
Okay.
Them say Exxon and all them say one party.
Yes.
You have ever Yale University?
Okay.
That's the Freemasons
Okay.
University, it's Colombo.
Okay.
That's what George Bush belongs
Okay
to.
then.
Mr. Green,
Yeah.
listen to white people who exposing them all the time. These are the facts of the world. If they want history to talk in, the history of the Catholic Church, the history of this, the history of Anglican, the history of the oil companies funding religious work all over the world.
Okay.
The white man said they got a book, a tick, book
What's
like
the
this book,
solution?
but
Ask me what's the
tick,
solution.
document
Each of them know what the
the
solution.
funding of
You know,
missionary
my
work
friend,
by the oil companies.
my friend,
Let us-
I leave one
Yeah.
philosophy with you. There's nothing new under the sun. If you look in 1857, there's a treaty between Russia, Japan, and Great Britain. That in fact shaped the world for the next 100 years until Japan got so bumptious that they want to rule the world during the Second World War. Had it not been for the Manhattan experiment, when Truman had on this belt, when he met with Stalin and Attlee at Potsdam, when the war was virtually won after Roosevelt's death in the 12th of April, 1945. He knew when he was talking to Stalin that he had the atomic bomb. That's why that conference was a failure. They couldn't divide the world, so we ended up with the Cold War. They dropped the two bombs in Hiroshima on the 6th of August
Big brother, big
and
brother.
Nagasaki on the 9th of August, 1945, which brought the Japanese to the senses. But Japan was intended to be a world power. The China situation, he doesn't understand China 200-300 years ago. And China wants to get back as the dominant Oriental, if not world power.
And
nothing wrong with that.
North and South Korea are looking at ways to unite.
Well, the Koreans have always believed that they're one people and that the
Yes.
line is artificial. I've been
Colony.
to both North and South Korea.
Good afternoon.
The panel.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Last one.
Eli.
This man, Hamilton Green, man. This man become a friend, this man of Moses. All this management man that, and when he was born in time, he will suffer this country. And now this man attack like a you Moses. You know,
Okay.
saint? You know nothing?
Okay. Thank you very
Anytime
much.
somebody say something,
Okay.
he wrong. He right.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
That's the agony of life.
Yes.
And what about the ecstasy of life now? This
Do you know, on this question of wrong and right and belief, more people have been killed in the world because of their beliefs.
Religion.
The Muslims, the Christians, the agnostics. That has been man's tragedy, man's weakness. I don't know why. That has been the situation in the
Well,
world.
yes, there is one God, though called by different names. The security sector reform.
Jamaica didn't do that.
And this is why he refused it back then. A couple $1 billion, remember? Now, I think it's needed, but it is not going far enough. Because as Dr. Sam Sittlington says, probes are finished, but there's some problem with the DPP and the police advisory section. And I think he's right. People are covering for people, and people don't want people to get prosecuted. And I'm worried that the DPP is in conflict of interest because she herself has been fingered in the Pradoville 2 probe. And I wonder what can we do to have a new DPP?
What you
That's
said.
a big question.
We asked Mr. Green. Yeah,
Don't ask me. It's a big question.
We need a new
It's a
DPP.
matter.
Yeah.
It's a matter of general concern, and I assume that the powers that be are not blind to this, and they will take the appropriate action at the time. What happens in these circumstances? You've got to go through the democratic process. You've got to go through the consultation of a coalition, and these things sometimes seem to be dragging on
Okay.
while there's some consultation taking place. It's not for me to pontificate on those matters unless I have all the facts. And I was spoken to some of the actors in the field, which I haven't.
Call again. Hello? 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 Some people don't listen and say, who say, listen to hello. But they're not answering the phone. Call in, hello.
Yeah, Mr. Sharma.
Yeah, yes.
Good day to you and your family.
Good day, yes.
My brother Rastaman.
Yeah.
How are you?
One of the favorite.
Rastaman, he looked like we're heading for another problem with the
Wow.
ERA and banks DIH again. It look like banks carry some of the taxpayers' dollars again, boy.
Okay.
Yeah, if that deal he have done with them, it look like banks going after them now.
Okay, thank you very much. Call you on the hello.
Which bank is that?
Yeah, that's-
Yeah,
What's that?
confident in tax write-off case against GRA.
Call you on the hello. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Green again.
Yeah.
Happy midday to you.
Good day, my brother.
Right. There are over 200 GTC workers listening to us now. The last time we spoke, if I'm correct, I think you promised to look into our pension situation. From last week to now, 2 pensioners died. One is a well-known guy. His name is Clifford Blackett. Used to be the personnel manager of GTC. He's one of those persons who have not received his correct pension and gratuity.
I said to you then, it's a matter that the union must deal with initially. It required, I've asked questions, I've gotten ambiguous answers. In fact, person I spoke to is in hospital right now. He worked with the union. I went to see him. As a matter the unions must take up. It would be inappropriate for me to go further than what I've done. I can't go behind or in front of institution established where you pay your fees every month to look after your business.
I think Mr. Harold Shepard is.
Mr. Green, you're correct, but this matter has been going on for a number of years. The union has been doing their best, but they're not getting positive feedback. And that is one of the reasons, seeing that you were the Prime Minister during that time when the place was sold, we were asking if you could do something for us.
But on the last
they've
occasion,
been given whatsoever concerns them.
I express a view that if people get in touch with me as a group, I'm prepared to follow it up. My phone number is in the book, my phone number is known to everybody, and I see people every day. But you've got to come to a small group with the facts. I'm prepared to speak to the powers that be to see if this matter can be advanced. But I can't take initiative on my own. I need to get all the facts. I met a group from Rupnuni last week, and it's a long story. I've already written the ministers involved, where they claim that a certain Brazilian group are extorting them. I've written about it, but the fellas came in to me, gave me all the facts upon which I could write. I don't want to write based on a telephone conversation.
Yeah.
This is understood.
Well, get a group together and come and see me. I'm prepared to be good officers.
All right, we will try to reach with you, but I would just want you to know that we have met with a lot of influential people, and as far as we're concerned, and what the information that we have gathered.
But who are the influential people?
Very influential. It is not protocol for those names to be called on the air. What I'm saying.
I think you qualify for diplomatic service.
What I'm saying, from information received from sources that are reliable, information that is being fed to one of the most senior personnel in this country.
What is her source?
John.
What?
Is not the correct information, and because of that, the workers are suffering. They are suffering. The executive of the Pension Association and the union are under severe pressure because people are saying they're not doing enough so they can be paid. Okay. But as you have advised, we'll try to reach it.
My friend,
thank you very much. And this matter will be on the air.
I'm making an offer to you.
Till this matter is resolved.
Tuesday or Wednesday morning, call me. My number is 2273194. Or you can contact me through Mr.
0194.
2273194.
3194.
2273194.
Thank you very much.
And I'll fix a time when I can meet you and a delegation and bring all the facts.
I am telling you,
I am quite certain that some of our seniors who are looking at this issue, they are hearing what is taking place presently now.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
They are supporters of this government. And we would like to have our matter resolved as early as possible. We don't want to go on the road.
Okay.
It doesn't look good to us. It is not protocol for us.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. You're on the panel. And Mr. Saul, I would also like you. Because your words, it seems to me like it has some weight.
Yes.
Help us in getting this matter resolved. Thank you very much.
In the name of the Almighty Jah Rastafari.
What's your
Sila.
response from the caller now?
Well, I told you can call me.
Yeah.
I don't know what the whole story is.
3 sides
It
to the
sounds
story.
strange
Yeah.
that they should not have their pension funds delivered. As I said,
Okay.
one of the men involved in the committee is in house. I went to see him 2 days ago,
Yes.
and I'm surprised that the matter is still dragging on.
I think some members of GAWU have that same problem with pension funds. They're now discovering that there's been no remittance of some monies to the relevant
Well, that's a serious
financial
matter.
authorities. Huh?
That's a serious matter. We got some agencies who are not paying into NIS.
NIS, right. That's what, fraud or what? That's embezzlement?
It's fraud.
Yeah.
Serious case.
Call your name. Hello.
Yes, good afternoon
Good
to
afternoon.
the panel.
Yes.
I have been listening to all the calls.
Yes.
Don't you have a time to put on your call? Because everybody would like to say something. One person
That's
can
true,
just
that's
call
true,
and
that's
speak
true.
for an hour and all like that.
Now you go ahead.
Well, what I want to say is that all those people who are saying this and saying that, why don't they come out and help the government? I'm an old woman, and I can tell you from the time these colonialists, the Canadists, and the Americans when they came in, and I know how I grew up. They put all the black people and all the Indians, they built some little shack by the cane field. And all these people live in the big high house. And we had to go to the pond trench to get water, to wash, to cook, grow up as a child. They with their children travel in the bus. We had to walk to school.
They're trained.
But you know, I have no complaint because our moral was very high.
Okay.
And one thing I'm not seeing now is moral. Nobody respect anybody.
Okay.
I heard Mr. Rascal was saying the same thing, and I confirm that. No moral. Where is the help with all these talking and talk? Come out and help the government and help the country. When I look out to the other countries, which the children out there are suffering, Guyana is a beautiful place. Nothing is wrong, but the people are just covetous. They want and want and want. Come out and help. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, Samuel.
Well,
People like,
as I said, I called for moral and spiritual revival
Yeah.
back in 1992, and she's right. And that the question is, how do you set about it? It's not an overnight exercise. It has to begin in the homes, in the communities, in the churches, in the mosques.
And the high political offices. Brother Green, what I'm children seeing, you seeing in Parliament sometimes as debate, is not good role modeling, you know. And that's where it also begins. Because a lot of people look to politicians
Hello,
as
good
the role
afternoon, Mr.
models.
Sharma
good
again.
afternoon, yes.
Yeah, concern this market story again, right? The
Yeah.
city market.
Yes.
You see, I want you to listen to me carefully, right?
Yeah.
You see the district, Mr. Green, the double standard he's setting. He's saying you can't accuse people of, doing wrongdoings with money and so on, but yet he could criticize the ministers and the PPP of keeping money and all of that. But here is the problem. The 25 million that Mr. Bolton signed with that contractor. If you see the amount of work this contractor would do with $25 million, right? The town clerk had 240 plus 50 million, that's 290 million. I want you all to understand what's really going on, you know. 290 plus the 25, it's going to be $315 million for the market. I just want to show you all in comparison the amount of money the town clerk and the council spend for the work that is done in City Market, y'all go and check it.
But the auditors can look into it.
But you know why Mr. Green is defending Mr. King? Y'all could remember when Mr. Soda was town clerk. Mr. Green presided illegally swerving Mr. King. That is his friend. So he won't say nothing about that.
Okay.
That is why he's defending Mr. King.
Okay.
Why you think the people is calling on Mr. King to go?
Okay.
Mr. Green knows that all the contract that is signing and money, y'all know what's going on there, man. Thank you.
No, well, auditors will have to go in there.
I am not defending anybody. All I'm asking for are facts. If somebody has information that money has been misappropriated, they can call in the auditors or ask for some investigation as to exactly what happened. And any council can ask for that. But I'm not prepared to publicly accuse any official.
No.
Without the facts.
Let's get the truth from
Sometimes when a building has to be redone and you have to maintain its original facade, it costs a lot of money. As I understand it, the idea behind Kitty Market was to maintain the colonial facade while putting in place modern facilities for the vendors. I haven't been there myself, so I am not in a position to say what he's saying is true or not. But if he has information, raise it with any of the council and they will raise it at the appropriate meeting. That's all he has to do.
You're on here. Hello?
Sorry, this number.
Hello? Yeah, Mr. Jefferson, Sankeys.
Yeah, I think Frederick, you should refer to the Kitty Post Office, which he thought was not properly done over. You know, that has been renovated and, you know. So I don't know who did that, the Kitty Post Office, who was responsible for that.
But you see, again, let us get the facts. Look, when we raised the question with the PP on the Stannington pump, for example, the contract was $65 million. When we checked, the pump and the work should not have been more than $26 million. The evidence was there.
You should get the engineer's estimate or something.
Look at the situation. People come, look, the old radio station, look at that building. Can be occupied up to now. That is evident in High Street.
What can be done with it?
I understand the work was so badly done that the ministry.
$600 million worth of work. $600 million worth of work.
More than that.
More than that.
I don't know. I haven't spoken to engineers.
I think it will be turned into a community center for the youths to go and occupy it and play games.
No, the question is whether the building can be
structurally sound?
saved as is. I don't know. All I know is that a lot of money was spent there. The present government has to remove the grass that was growing out. And there was a proposal to put a ministry there. I don't know where that is at the moment. I don't know where
So
it
what
is.
happened in the ministry right now?
What happened?
The ministry and the station, right? The radio station.
It is unoccupied. It's a white elephant. It's there for all to see.
So what other equipment they had inside?
We need to have a public statement.
No.
It was never used.
It was never. No. It's the building is on the land where the former radio station was.
Yes.
GDC.
The public
In High Street.
Yeah, I know.
Outside St. Philip's ground.
Yeah.
But the building was never utilized.
Well, maybe CN can move in there and set up his radio station there.
No, I was supposed to buy the place. Prime Minister Simon said you give me the place. I was about to buy it.
In High Street?
Yes.
My take on it, I don't
The
think
trouble
a proper
is, CN,
assessment has been done
what will be the cost
of
of making it functional? Sometimes a building is so badly done. Suppose the foundation is badly done.
Yeah.
The
So-
cost to fix it might be monumental. I don't know.
So hold on. So somebody has got to be responsible for that bad, shoddy work. Who was the contractor?
Well, we tried to find out what
And what?
Can't find any.
PP had the grounds well covered.
Yeah.
Oh, it's one of those laundromats.
Yeah. Caller, your name. Hello.
The panel there, Mr. Sharma, how are you?
Yes. Not bad.
It's a Bacchus build that place there.
Okay.
Ishan Bacchus and Sons.
Okay.
When that place built, there was no pile drive in, there was no... Actually, they dig down, and they didn't dig down, they just raised the foundation and come up.
Okay.
They want everybody know that it was going bad. I used to live just around that area, and everybody knew that it was going bad. Nobody actually see anything. And Mr. Sharma, you just build a lot of places. You know $300 million what it could do. Kitty Market, you build a lot of places. You looked at Kitty Market and tell me it's $300 million spent there. You know how money to spend. You just go buy your own things and do your own thing. We as private people, we build our own things. And we would know what $300 million could do.
Too much is can do
Yeah, the people pay when the workers go in there, they play domino and table tennis, and they getting paid to do that. I don't know why Mr. Green defending certain things. The position there is that
You must stop saying that. I am saying let's get the evidence.
Green, you're going to reply just now.
No. You must not make statements. You must not say
why we voted
what I did not say.
The coalition. We voted for the coalition for one reason, because you know why Indians go out there and vote? They were fed up with the PPP. They were fed up about the skullduggery. They were fed up about the place that Kishan Bacchus built in High Street. They were fed up of many numerous things. And people say, well, look, it's time for a change. Let us put on this person here now. They saw Granger, Mr. Granger, our president, as the honest dude. And they did exactly what they had to do. They voted Mr. Granger. Everybody know Mr. Granger is an honest man. But come on, we can't go back to the same thing. Right now, people are getting fed up with the same old story. You know, you pass, you $300 million bill this market, and if I had the money, I would have built it for far less than that. You don't need $300,000 for the market there.
Million.
And they're working, look, they said 240,000 and finish it. They pump another 25. They pump another 50. Now you're pumping another 25. Whoa, and it's not completed. If a contractor give an estimate, my brother, the only thing from 240 to 300 something thousand, you're changing contractor all the time. You must run in expense. You can't be changing contractor all the time. If the contractor do that, he ought to check and see what and what. Don't worry, maintain the heritage and the thing that it has. He ought to know what he got to do. If I take over.
I would suggest to CN that invites the town clerk, the treasurer, and the mayor to come to this program to talk about Kitty Market.
Yeah. Look, there's another thing.
I would suggest that.
This garbage collection, $200 a barrel.
No, would you agree with that suggestion?
What, with 200?
No.
And then I got to pay another $200.
No.
For every week.
No, that's CN.
You know what time these people come? In my area, in Alberton, we got to sit down and watch the garbage truck come at 7 o'clock.
You're not listening.
If you left your barrel outside,
okay.
he's gone with it. If you're going to pick up your barrel and go, so you got to watch man for a garbage truck coming at 7 o'clock in the night.
Yeah, to go with it and sell it.
Mr. what you were trying to say, please.
No, if there's a concern about the Kitty Market, I suggest you invite the town clerk, the treasurer, and the mayor to come on your program.
Yes.
And
I got no problem.
And let people call, because they're public funds and there should be no secrecy about it.
That's right.
And I'm not defending anybody. All I'm saying, don't accuse people capriciously without having information. You may look at the bill and say it costs $300 million, but you don't know what is involved. What are the details? I don't know. I'm not an expert. All I'm saying, don't quote a figure unless you have the evidence.
Call again, hello?
Yeah, Mr. Sharma.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes.
Mr. Sharma, some people around this country is unfair at times.
Yes.
Let me tell you something. You see, we on the West Coast, you know how much we just pay to remove a garbage drum every Tuesday by Poor Brothers?
How much?
$400, Mr. Sharma. $400 a week. Right? Every Tuesday, $400.
How do you pay
And if they in Georgetown have to pay $200, that is not unfair.
Do you pay rates and taxes?
We pay $400 for one
No,
drum.
not that. How much rates and taxes do you pay per year?
We pay $12,000 something a year.
$1,000?
No, 12,000 something. Yes.
Yes.
Are you complaining that the $400 is too high or too low?
No, that is reasonable. $100 is reasonable for those people in Georgetown too.
Okay.
And we pay $400 for ourselves.
Okay.
You understand? They should thank God that they're paying $200.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay.
And they will keep the city more clean.
Okay.
They have to pay money for where they throw the garbage all about, they have to pay for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
He pays 12,000, he said.
Call your name.
No, he's supporting the 200.
Call your name.
He's supporting 200.
Hello, Mr. Sharman?
Yes.
Yes, I agree with that call because even in Eccles, on Thursday, Poland brother usually go there and it's $400 to clear a barrel. But that is not what I want to talk about. It's a few weeks ago, I heard they spoke about the Demerara Harbor Bridge where they said they're losing revenue. And they were blaming it on the parking meters. But I don't believe that is the cause. What I think is because the development that is taking place on the West Coast. Because I know some people who go over there by boat to Freedom Hoop to purchase things that are cheaper than in Georgetown. So whereby you have the need to come to town to do certain things now, a lot of people they're not coming to town because they're getting that. Look, you have an other TV where the secret is out. But they show you how much things you can get at this place and the cost you're getting. So it's not that the parking meters because people can get the things right there now and everybody don't have to come to town. And Mr. Granger is doing something whereby he is trying to place banks and different things in the area. So you will have certain things will cut down. And then it's amazing to see now how everybody can find all this. I'm not saying the government is perfect because there's a lot of things that they're doing that I'm not satisfied with. But a lot of people could talk now and after they went to they're doing a bunch of junk. Did they hear them coming out and talk for unnecessary money you spend to do a lot of stupidness? Did they come and talking and thinking out? So yes, we have a right to investigate certain things and to see and make sure that excessive. And Mr. Branch is an honest man, but there are some people that he got there still, that are still into skullduggery that he needs to remove them.
Sticky
Thank
fingers. Yeah, she's right.
Yeah, thank you.
Full marks.
Call your name. Call your name.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sharma.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Sharma, I want to dedicate a program concerning this oil money.
What?
Oil money.
Oil money revenue.
Oil money?
I know oil money, yes.
Yeah, because we hearing a set attacking and them things, but when you see the money start coming, nothing don't go for poor people. Okay. You understand me? Everything go in the big one pocket. And I want you to form an organization because how to get the PTC for the private sector, they only looking after all them rich people. There ain't nobody looking after poor people.
May I ask? I'd like to ask you a question.
So you will speak on behalf of the poor people.
I would like to ask you a question. My friend, I'd like to ask you. Listen to me.
Right? So you now will speak on behalf of the poor people. So that what you said, we poor people don't go without because we ain't got nobody speaking for we hearing that we ain't get money. The minister saying that they ain't get money for land CARICOM country. You start in CARICOM country, CARICOM, you need to think about we when we right now up to now we still starving.
My friend, you heard me on the program last week on this. Listen.
You don't hear no oil money going to we ghettos and them things. You don't hear about CARICOM. You get money to be CARICOM.
My friend.
You understand me? So they're just stupidness with the talking and get people coming and telling them that don't give money to the people, put it in a bank. Let me tell you economics. In America, they try to give you tax cut and money back to the population because when you put money in the poor man pocket, they go spend it. You put in the rich man pocket, they put it in the bank. Nothing, the money don't circulate. So what's stupid is talking about giving
my friend.
Money, all going back
you
to
get free cooking gas.
When you give it to the poor people, they're looking for a better bed, a better pot, a bag of rice, flour, sugar, and them things there to stick it, eat. So when talking, I want you to dedicate a program because let me tell you, if this government do stupidness, me make sure me go out on the road and make sure I campaign against them so they come out because money have to reach the poor people.
Yes.
Everybody we see cooking with tin and cup and them things that they have to get pot. They have to get bed who's sleeping on cocos bag and them stupidness there have to get bed.
Yes.
Me want to hear what you study giving money to CARICOM when people
CARICOM?
Carry on.
Okay.
But what I'm saying,
And
that is
yes.
by the end, we have to have.
That's a very good
that
point
is
the
very-
brother make.
We'll
man.
have Christopher around here,
Yes.
Minister
No,
Trotman.
he's right, he's
and then
right.
the panel will
Yes,
be here.
yes.
You
He's
representing
right.
the
Yes,
poor
yes,
people.
yes.
My
I
friend,
represent poor people.
Dubai.
we listen to me. We've raised this issue before.
Right.
The chap say you want tin cup, you want bed. The impression I get, listen to some people, this oil money is going to come and just pass out to open inverted commas poor people.
Okay.
The poor people mustn't have to make a special effort. What I know the government plans, what Trinidad did, this is what Manning's did. You can't help poor people by doling out money to them.
Why not?
No,
Why?
they remain poor.
How?
Listen to me carefully.
We'll spell it out right now.
If you just dole money out to people to get them a bed, a pot, food,
You gotta treat
they
them.
remain poor. If you want to help poor people with money, you're going to get. There are three things you have to. First, ramp up the education system so they and their children will be qualified to take positions higher up the ladder. Two, you've got to put the infrastructure in place. The infrastructure, roads, communications, so they benefit, not directly by giving man $10 to
All
put
right,
in his
and then three
pocket.
as well.
And thirdly, you've got to create an environment so that he learns to make use of that money. You've heard the old story.
Wisely.
You give a man a fish, you don't help him. You have to teach him to fish. And the poor people we're talking about have to be retrained.
Because they could give them a million
Yeah,
and
but here
become
it is.
poor the next
You're going to
day.
teach him to fish.
I've seen on the East Coast a poor chap won a lottery overseas. He didn't listen, and within 3 years he was a pauper.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But there's
So
a
we've
fourth
got to be
aspect.
responsible.
The fourth aspect is giving the man still financing or the means to production
To do what?
to make himself right, because he's wanting to put infrastructure and do all the other things.
No, he said
but a man,
education and training.
yeah, but a man still needs capital.
Call you in here.
He needs money
You,
to
you know
invest.
that's why we had the co-ops.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Green is
Yeah,
right.
yes.
Give a man a fish every day,
Yes.
he gonna remain the same way.
Okay.
Him to fish, he can think. That's what the government needs. What the government needs to do is open the land in the interior. Give people a 10-acre, 5-acre land.
They want to
Land
do
and
that.
plant. Open industry if you can,
Right.
or packaging thing.
Right.
They want the
That's what we
easy
need
way
to
out.
do. Open
They
in
ain't gonna do
packaging
that.
and canning. Teach people, and I've been saying to the, I don't know, the government need to listen. The same army, now you got the youth corps where you just formed. Those children that just been in the youth corps, I was in one, right? Your whole idea is that you want to be educated in some field. You might be a slow learner in the academic, but then you might know mechanic. You might inspire to be a mechanic, a tradesman, some tradesman, carpentry, and all them things. All those things are good. If I know that I could have got in the army or the police force and well, the police force is a different kettle of fish in the army, and be what I want to be by being by being trained and do what we have to think. I would join the army, and every youth wants to be inspired, but you can't contract how they work, and you're not teaching me nothing. You're teaching me to march whole day and be in thing. We need to stop the contract out all these jobs. In the army, you could learn plumbing, you could learn carpentry, you could learn mason, you could learn mechanic, you could learn electrician thing. But when you get out of work, how are we going to do it now, Mr. Sharma?
Oh.
We need to
It's
do
a valid
better than
point.
that. Mr. Granger he's an army man. He would know,
Okay.
and not everybody wants to march and raise a gun.
Okay.
So we need to do that.
Thank you very much.
We still need to have access to finance capital when all is said and done. You see, the Small Business Bureau, hold on. The Small
Well, my
Business Bureau is
friend-
doing a good job right now.
My friend, let me say something.
What?
Trust experience for caution.
Right.
You don't give people money without preparing them to spend that money.
All right, you got a good point.
And that is why we've started a program with the co-ops. I hear Fenty every day on the radio. Secondly, you've got to reconfigure the minds of people. If a man is oriented one way, you don't do it in a year. It takes time. Some people adjust in a few months. And you see, we have the evidence. When we closed down Matthews Ridge, you know the money we spent to try to get those chaps there to plant? They didn't. They wasted the money. They were satisfied. They're miners, full stop. It takes time to get people to adjust.
Jim Jones, they did some work.
Yes.
But Jones had a different ideology.
Yes.
Jones actually started export vegetables to the Caribbean, going through that same Port Kaituma.
Yeah.
But here, brethren, times have changed. There's a man named Jack Ma who started a company called Alibaba. And Jack Ma says, you got to invest in the future. You got to invest in the young people, 30
Exactly.
years and
I
below.
agree with that.
And you also got to deal with the technology of the day and
That's
the
why
technology that's emerging.
National Service and the
E-commerce
new
is
Cadet
it.
Corps are important.
What's that?
Okay.
National Service, the Cadet Corps are important, so we train young people. That's what Burnham had in mind when he started National Service. A lot of people have come to me, Indians and Afro-Guyanese, mixed, to say how much they benefited from National Service.
Yes. You're on there, please.
Barrett went on the TV with the sugar workers must be paid and this the rights and this and that.
Yes.
You didn't know that was the right when they did beating you and the sugar workers and lock them up over at Wales.
Yes.
How you didn't know about sugar workers right then? Now you know about sugar workers right. And then people would tell them a kitty market is so much money. The PPP built one toilet for $20 million. One toilet.
Yeah.
For $20 million. Not a toilet with gold and diamond on it. The ordinary toilet. $20 million. And then they complain about that. But they complain about everything this government do.
Yeah.
Is this government far too hard?
Far too hard.
They're supposed to hear it.
Says a noise nuisance. I like that.
Them.
Yes.
But do like man come for jail out of them. This is all I can tell you.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Matlock on the case.
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes.
Caller, you're on the hello. Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Hello. You're on the hello, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, Sherman.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Green,
Sir,
when somebody pose a question, must let them speak, the man. Then you can answer them, okay?
what's your question?
I said everybody calling the program. Don't interpret, let the people speak.
Oh, no.
He said
You
don't
want to
interrupt.
answer everything.
No, no.
What is
Give the
it?
people a chance to
He
speak.
didn't answer.
He said give them a chance to
Mr. Chairman,
speak.
that's your program.
Yes. Thank you very much.
But you just had a chance.
Caller, you're on the hello. Hello, caller, you're on the hello.
Sorry, this number is temporarily
Hello. Hello.
Just speak at your microphone, with your telephone.
See, this doesn't want to answer.
Well, some calls are coming through very good.
Caller, you're on the hello.
Good afternoon, panel.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good
Yeah,
afternoon.
Mr. Sharma, the guy is right. It's your panel.
Yes.
And Mr.
I know that.
Mr. Green is an invitee by you. So
Yeah.
he's invited there to answer questions that they're trying.
Yeah, so you answer the question.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah, yeah, that's what
All
you
I'm
do.
telling
That's
you
right.
for do what you feel like.
Yeah, yeah.
All he needs to do is just shut up and listen over the TV, or if he catch a line, he could actually talk.
Okay.
However, just to make some points, Mr.
Okay.
Green, thanks for being there again and assisting
Yeah.
some of the nonsense that PVPs normally do in Freedom House to brainwash people. However, they don't like people talking back to them. That's why Rohi didn't get the position like how Dan Ramatar get it, because he was a puppet. However, the guy just now called and said that he know that PPP people or East Indian people voted for the new coalition. He better go back and check the whole list, because the PPP had lost the election because of the coalition of a government, and they only got one seat majority. So if he know that Coolie people vote and he vote for that, he better go and check who he vote for, because I think it count. It probably actually spoiled, or he's fake news.
Okay.
However, Mr. Sharma, today is your Donald Trump first anniversary.
Yes.
I'm happy to actually tell you that he has a big cake,
Yeah.
because his cake ain't cutting at all. There's no government money, so I want to know how he's spending.
Yes.
Because he's always actually tweet
Yeah.
the government money in America
Yeah.
all the time. I don't know if you're calling congratulating for a year service, but it was very atrocious, and it looked like all them Donald got the same problem.
All them done.
All them done, that's right. Thank you very much.
That's interesting.
Anniversary.
Call it, hello.
Sworn in on January 20th.
Call it, hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I support Donald Trump.
Good afternoon.
For years. Yes, go ahead, please.
Why listen very carefully?
Yes.
You see why they say the industry cannot
Yes.
in something?
Yeah.
I was a shareholder. They bring a lot of new variety, and they cane them at 16 and 17 ton cane for make 1 ton of sugar. And you know what happened after that? The people start degrade the bottom and manage them.
Yes.
Old time cane like Pinner, rock and roll and the thing, the farmers are planted up to 30. And the farmers that make the money. And the government not pay attention to them things. And the CEO them was been surrounded.
Yeah.
Fats are then a concern. All of them are drop and dry board. And let me tell you one next thing right now. This show work management them, I go up on computer and I'm a planking. Last time white man I'm in a planking on computer. Even a dig the door, keep plowing properly. And even a soak them. If they don't pay attention with the rest, I say to left.
Okay.
One would say, I thought that he's going to make 40,000 tons sugar, he can make 40 cents. With the cane, what am I going to do?
Okay.
Thank you. And you know that people right. This copper for me here, you got 6 weeks only. So me don't know what really are going in this country. Our next thing again.
Yes.
I will never see it. The NDC since last year, may repeat this thing again to you.
Yes.
Last year, up to yesterday, the buy parking, I looked up for it. The NDIA not approved for this canal up to now with this land book.
Yes.
Only one land book can work.
Yes.
And me don't want people go out and say that people stifle the government program thing. You buy them ask, but you got one at no, and you got 1 year, see some of no. And when you buy them, yesterday in a meeting, and when they surround them, I laugh in the meeting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
But
then
I don't know what I
when I get pulled out,
Okay.
I pick up and grade, who go pay for all and take what we buy.
Okay.
You want to know.
Okay.
Negligence.
So what is your point? What is your point to me? You're trying to make. What is your point?
Project is up to NDI is up to sit last year to not done approval that much people come in here. When they are not still going to live for any, they got machine that dig them drain, and they got to live for and run get the machine there and take away. There, dig out the place quick. And then I go bring on 2-3 battery. It's not fair. They're not fair. That is drainer one. I want to dig the drainer with a small bucket.
Okay.
When they not take a flood, the machine gun it.
Okay then.
That's so clearly that they don't want to develop an engine lift.
Thank you.
You know, metal plate.
Yeah.
And I want, why they can't get NDI can approve of a machine up to now? Eh? Look how about my boy, some of what use 1,000-acre land a right ago, and the government doing nothing. Nothing he doing. They're not go and sell it because see Brenda was talking after and his speech. Go there, man. Stand up and look and say, you. Let me hear what can be done. And if it can be done within 2-3 weeks or 2-3 years, fire that, you man. Fire him. But not for them as also and so long and getting money.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Older should have been there. But what I'm saying, we recycle the same people that were running the sugar industry before. We brought back Hanneman, we brought back BIM, and no creative leadership, no innovative leadership in the sugar industry.
Sanke, the people of the government is this country. I'm Mexico, know that. Who do your government record this country?
Who?
Who is the government in this country?
The governor?
The people.
The government. They're the people?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a coalition.
Yes.
And they're trying their best in difficult circumstances. Yes. The point made by Mr. Sankey is a worrisome one, that the coalition has taken a very proper position and have not dismissed people wantonly. In some societies, including America years ago, you had what the system was once the government changed. All the senior civil servants and managers offered their resignation. That didn't happen here.
No.
So that
life and death.
Mr. Granger and his government, because they want to be open inverted commas fair to people,
and magnanimous,
are dealing with people who are saboteurs.
Or people with questionable loyalties.
Well,
Not necessarily.
you've put it delicately. And therefore, he also is faced with this dilemma that some people, not necessarily saboteurs or incompetent, but were placed in positions for which they're not capable of handling. We suffered over the past 20, 30 years what is called the Peters Principle. It's a principle which was well documented by an English bureaucrat. A man could be an excellent police sergeant, perfect, 100%, but you make him a superintendent and he becomes a failure because his level of competence is that of a sergeant.
Yeah.
So because of our society, a lot of young people have left. We have people who have been put in positions, higher positions, for which they can't function.
Yeah.
It's called Peters Principle.
Okay.
And it's a tragedy of not Guyana alone, but other countries. And that example I gave exists. A man's a good sergeant, but make an inspector or a superintendent, he becomes a failure. He can't function at that level.
Okay.
And that's the problem we have.
The people that come to this country, people that come in this country, the people, it's the government of this country.
Well, the people, Sian is is a term that.
Yeah, PPP and PNC.
Yes.
Who are the people? And who can speak for the people? Everybody claims to speak for the people.
And the people could be divided into probably two sections: the unconscious set and the conscious set, because there are a set of people that don't think for themselves,
Yes.
and they allow politicians and leadership that is corrupt to impose their views on them and lead them by the nose. Now, another thing is happening in this country. Guyanese workers are not being paid at the same level as some foreign workers. Their perks are not given, and so we get a feeling that there's another kind of colonial era all over again, deja vu all over again. How can we stop that? Because we are moving into another phase of development, and yet still we're feeling shortchanged.
Okay.
We don't feel as if we're getting an equal share of the pie.
As I always said, and my program, people eat, some people eat it, and some people starve to death.
The unions must deal with that matter.
The unions again.
We have a trade union congress.
Uh-huh.
The unions must deal with the matter.
Call you in the hello.
Louis got it in.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes.
The comment is people speaking about Gaisuku, right?
Yes.
I used to work at Gaisuku all the time.
Yeah.
Now the employee
Yeah.
since 1992 at
Yeah.
Gaisuku,
Yeah.
right? And they're talking about the previous government and the government thing. But then it's saying that the government left, the previous government leave Gaisuku in $78 billion. Yet people is speaking about them kind of things. Eh?
Yeah.
Only by basing the government and the government shut down the estate. But then it's talking the white paper what the government had before. The PPP government had before. They're not speaking about them kind of things.
Okay.
And they're talking about severance and that kind of thing.
Okay.
We know that we're going to get severance and we got to wait as the government
Yes.
still have the kind of money
Yes.
put into the sugar industry. Because if the government, let me pouring $32 billion in the sugar industry,
Okay.
this country would have done take already. So many
But
people
the
commenting and
PP
making one to the comment
The
over
PP
it.
started downsize the sugar
That's all
industry.
I have to say, right?
Thank you very much. We just have a 10 minutes more to go in the air. Call you in the hello. Hello? Yeah.
Me.
Finally, what do you like to say?
My sister, my Rastafari sister, Sister Candice Rowena Ramesar, says that on the last 4 occasions, and as recently as January 18th, whilst as an outgoing passenger at CGIA, she was asked to drop her locks, and they fingered her locks right through, searching for drugs, and I don't think that's fair to her. And the same thing is done when we go to shows at National Stadium, or they treat us Rastafari like dirt. They make us do all kinds of things, and they're trampling on our rights as citizens. Now, if I'm traveling with my queen, and my queen got her nice natty tie up, how can you ask her to undress?
You don't think got drugs inside?
No,
How do people do that?
no. It is just their imagination and their presumption,
No.
and their no, listen to me,
Imagine-
and the disrespect.
Yes, yes.
So they violate our rights as Rastafari to ask us to undo our locks and then go.
But some of
point
the
to our
find drugs
locks.
it's here.
Man, any drugs we got is in we head. It's not drugs we deal with. We deal with herb, not drugs. Rastafari don't
Okay.
deal with drugs.
Okay.
As a Rastaman, we deal with herb, and it's grown as a plant. And that's why we're saying legalize it. because you're trampling on our rights not to do that and put us in jail for 3 years and people getting $800,000 bail for killing a man. I'm saying that if we don't stand up, we will be down-pressed, oppressed, and repressed. And that's what I'm saying. Treat our rights with respect because we are human beings. Don't let down the queen them locks as searching point to it because you would not do it to another female who's covered up. Rastafari women have got rights and they're queens. Please respect us.
All queens come.
Yes, and we welcome the news that the government is meeting with the unions in the sugar industry and they're cooperating and trying to find a
How do they
solution.
cooperate?
Well, that is what even Komal Chan said, was pleased with the meetings, that they're working together to find
You
solutions.
sure it's not fake paper you got here? Fake?
Komal Chan, he was on the radio and says...
Now with Venezuela, we need to show compassion to the refugees who are coming. We just don't put them in jail, fine them and lock them. We should try and give them maybe a humanitarian visa like what they're doing. And then we need to investigate what is happening with the execution of Guyanese who go to Venezuela. We know there could be gangs. We're not saying it's condoned by the government, but they're gangs. They're narcotics gangs and what have you over there. So we need to really investigate and find a way of resolving these issues.
Mr. Green, there are a lot of fake news in this country. And you like the newspapers, a lot of fake news. What do you think about fake news? Fake news.
Well, it's a diplomatic matter. We have to engage the Venezuelans in spite of the border issue and let them know that as neighbors we expect a certain protocol and that Guyanese must be treated as human beings. What they can do with these marauding gangs is another matter. You've had lawlessness in Europe, United States, you had the Wild West, and it's a question of how do you bring these chaps under control. My greater concern is what I started with, our judicial system. And I'm proposing to you that you call a meeting because justice delayed is justice denied. And it's happening too much.
What do you think? What you going to say about Donald Trump is closing the country?
Trump?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump?
Yeah.
The less
1 year in power.
The less said about Donald Trump, the better.
Why some argue?
You see, he was democratically elected. The people of the United States must decide when enough is enough. But as somebody said today, maybe Trump is speaking for the majority of Americans. Who knows? I don't know. And one needs to be in that society to understand really what is happening.
So what is your view about the Trump?
I don't live enough time there to express a view. All my family are there and they have their own individual views. But I don't think it is proper for me to express my views about the President of the United States of America.
Give me your closing remarks.
Well, I hope that for the new year, we'll be able to bring our people together. The nexus between the sugar workers union and the government is a good sign. I hope that to take us on to a higher plateau so we learn to deal with principles and not personalities. And that your program be used as a catalyst, as a means to bring people together to talk. Invite the Commissioner of Police, the Mayor, the Town Clerk, to talk about Mr. Trotman, to talk about these matters that are of concern to people.
And you send out your invitation soon to these people?
He's done so before.
Yes.
We can
also we need to have the police here. Resume.
Yes, and we work on that. We work on that.
Yes, I work on that. And brother, invite young people too, so we can get their vision. We are old. We are going in the grave.
You're old? No, you?
Well, at 64, I would consider myself matured.
Talk
really old.
Talk for yourself.
Talk
for yourself.
My cigarette time
here, we still functioning, but let's face it, in this society.
Rasa, thank you for coming.
Once you're showing a little gray, they think you're discarded.
Thank you for coming.
And you're not showing any gray at all, so you're young.
Have a nice day.
One love, unite.